let me get the information out there straight away so it's not just a clickbait title or you're not waiting until the end. David Moyes has got one more game. It's against Fulham. Right. Okay, now we've got that out of the way. Where's this information come from? It's leaked from the club. And there's been lots of it. I think, if you pardon the expression, there was a whole morning's worth of leaking going on here. It's sources from the club rather than the one particular person who we all know who it is. And I understand why they do that. They say this is off the record. This information here that I'm going to give you is off the record. They do it so as there's enough distance between it if it comes back and rebounds on them. They can turn around and say, whoa, I didn't say that. So the phrase is don't quote me on that. This is off the record. There's been a lot of it. I haven't spoken to anyone at the club. I'll just say it now. I haven't spoken to David Sullivan. Okay, let's just put that out there. So I'm not going to pretend that I do or I've got some in the know information. I really don't. We used to speak to David Sullivan. If you've been following Hammers Chat for a long time, you know we used to do some media work for the club a long, long time ago, as the song goes. And even after that, I used to ask him questions, and he used to respond to emails. Doesn't do it anymore. Doesn't reply to me. That's absolutely fine. Not a problem with that at all. However, I do know at least 3 people who he has replied to, so the information that I've been given from them also matches the information that you might see out in the news, which is the same night that Jacob Steinberg's got, or Jim White's got, ex-West Ham United employee has got. Everyone's been given more or less the same stuff. There's one really important detail, which I won't get to in a minute. Let me tell you the disparity in the detail. Some of them are saying, so the news that I saw, and that I heard about was he had to win against Fulham. David Moyes had to win against Fulham or he loses his job. Whereas there was some other stuff which is he can't lose against Fulham. That's quite an important disparity, isn't it? That's quite an important difference because there's 2 points difference in that, and that could really make a difference of whether we stay up or not. But there was a lot of it. There was a lot of disinformation coming out. And I noticed there were also a lot of back and forths. It wasn't just a statement that was coming out. There was a lot of dialogue seemed to be going on. And I think it's probably fair to suggest that there are some managers who are being considered at this point. I think probably the most frustrating thing for me is this all seems like a bit of a surprise for people at the club. And that is a real worry for me. The fact that they might suddenly be coming to the realisation that David Moyes isn't quite up to the job is a concern. I've seen correspondence where people have been certainly telling people at the club that there is dressing room disharmony. The players have a lot of players in the squad since the defeat. In fact, they've been doing it for a little while, the players. But when I say been doing it for a little while, they've had clandestine behind-the-scenes meetings. They have been briefing newspapers. Jacob Steinberg himself wrote an article where he was briefed by the players. They've been hinting at it in podcasts. They've been sort of telling anybody that wanted to know that David Moyes had sort of lost their faith. David Moyes has lost the players. There's little doubt about that. And also there were a couple of players yesterday who were very, very unhappy about it. There's no smoke without fire, and there's an awful lot of bloody smoke, and there's a raging inferno. That's what's going on. I think that the problem is David Moyes probably doesn't even realise he's stood in a house that's getting engulfed in flames. He doesn't even realise. But I think the worrying thing with that was that a lot of this appears to have come as a surprise to the ownership, and that's a concern to me. And I mentioned it before. That worries me about the conduit between the dressing room and the boardroom. It seemed very evident to me, looking on the pitch, that the players were depressed, distressed, lacking in motivation, and completely confused by the tactics. That is, I don't even overly expect anybody to have a massive technical or tactical knowledge of football to understand that. You just have to sort of know people, know body language. You can tell when someone's fed up, right? You can tell when someone's just can't be bothered anymore. That's what's happening. That's prevalent throughout the team when you just look at the team. The fact that that hasn't really been noticed until now by the ownership is a major worry. The fact that they're now looking round for potential replacements is a major worry. I'll tell you what that smacks of. That smacks of a lack of expertise. And that's a real worry. The very people at the top of our club appear to have a lack of expertise in football. I think the worst thing is they've not actually employed anybody. You can do that, that's fine. There's lots of people who run companies and they don't have any expertise, but they employ you employ the best in class. You employ an expert. We've not even done that. So we've got this big lack of expertise at the top, and then we've got somebody doing his apprenticeship in Mark Noble, and you don't really have a conduit between the players and what's going on there and boardroom level. So this all come as a massive surprise. I really don't get why why he's been given the Fulham game. It sounds like they've pretty much already decided, and it's just hope that he will turn it around. I do wonder how bad it has to get, and I would level this at Moyes and at the board here. Clearly, a 4-1 drubbing at Brighton wasn't enough, so let's add in a 5-1 against Newcastle. That's not enough. Clearly, surrendering territory and possession against the worst team in the league, Southampton, is not enough. Yes, we got the win, but we sat back. We were petrified of them. We were petrified of Larnaca the first time we played a game. They had 14 corners against us. We just sit back. I don't know why. It's all of this is incremental. I don't know why this hasn't been noticed in the journey and how we've got to this position that we're in now, which is we're a laughing stock, and it's really this is why I have a complete and utter disdain for a lot of the media. The media are now turning on West Ham as if to say, "Oh, West Ham are in trouble. West Ham have been crap all season." Well, sorry, that's not what you've been saying. You've been saying the stuff that the board think, which is who better than David Moyes. That is what they've been singing in the media for a long, long time. And now they're going to try and use some sort of perceived wisdom. Not everybody. Who's the guy on 5 Live? Stephen Warnock. Not him. All right. Then you get the odd one who will know, and they understand and they can articulate what's going on at West Ham. You get others who give this broad overview of what's wrong. And they don't think anything's wrong, and they think that David Moyes is the answer. Who better? There are no better candidates available than David Moyes. It just sounds preposterous, doesn't it now? And I think the thing is, a lot of the dialogue, which I certainly noticed that was going on between some of the ownership and the press yesterday, were names being suggested to the ownership, and this worried the hell out of me, quite frankly. It also concerned me, because I feel that morale is so low and tactics are so bad. I mean, it don't get much worse, does it, than sort of shipping 5 goals. And they could have scored more, Newcastle. Let's be fair, they could have scored more. Southampton probably should have scored against us as well. And I think it's really bad when you're looking at that and you're trying to assess it and you're thinking, well, actually, how much worse can it get? And if it can't get any worse, then actually where are you going to get that uplift for? I think someone coming in and just lifting morale might give us an extra 10%. Even if somebody came in and then did not an awful lot with the tactics, but just made the whole team and the whole squad and the whole club feel better about themselves, that would be something, wouldn't it? That would give us more of a chance. It's quite obvious that David Moyes can't motivate those players. It's quite obvious that they're miserable. As I said, I don't use the word depressed flippantly. That's what they look to me. They look depressed. They look fed up. They look like they don't want to. You've all had a job that you don't want to go to work, right? We've all had that job, right? That's the West Ham players. Yeah, okay, pick yourselves up and they get 100 grand a week and all the rest of it. They just got to get on with it. Well, they do. They do turn up for work and they do it. It's not about that. It's about getting a good manager, a good boss, whatever it might be, a good supervisor will get an extra 10% out of the people working under him. That's gone. He's completely drained them. They are. It's like I said before. If it was one person making an individual mistake, you can point the finger and say, okay, that was just him. When everybody is making individual mistakes, it means they're all petrified. They are terrified. They're depressed, and they're terrified. And somebody needs to come in and give them an uplift. And I look at it and I think, why has this not been noted? Even if you don't have that footballing expertise, even if you don't know which manager to bring in, surely someone. And I look at some of the comments that have come back from the ownership. The first one about Kevin Nolan, and I'm not suggesting that Kevin Nolan is the answer to everything, but it was given that his managerial record so far has been crap. Well, the person you have in there is crap. I think the only question is, would he come in and would he allow him to attack a little bit? Would he make it a happier place to be? Are we more likely? Basically, is there nobody more likely to get us 3 wins than David Moyes? That's what I would ask them. Is that what you honestly think? There's nobody more likely than David Moyes. Yet you still think that the best bet of getting 3 points, well, I'll just say 3, we're probably only 3 wins, sorry, is to keep him in place. It was entirely this reason why Rodgers was my favourite. Long-term manager, you'd probably pick Potter. But actually, I really do feel someone needs to lift the spirits, and that's why I would like somebody loud in the dressing room. Potter's not. He's quiet. Very, very quiet guy. Very quiet guy. Unassuming guy. Rodgers has personality. Bundles of it. Bundles and bundles of personality. He's a motivator. He gives rousing motivational speeches. If you're unsure, go and look at some of the stuff. In fact, even go back and far, look at how he dealt with Raheem Sterling when he was at Liverpool and stuff like that. Look at him giving motivational speeches at Liverpool, at Leicester, at Celtic. He would go in there. He would throw off the shackles. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with throwing off the shackles, because at the moment, it's why not attack? We might as well. It's not like we can defend. And I think that this is part of it. David Moyes has set his stall out as a defensive manager. Well, OK, that's fine. But it's got to work, right? I mean, Arsenal fans suffered it for years. You know the song, 1-0 to the Arsenal, George Graham. I mean, it was pretty tedious stuff, really, wasn't it? But it worked. Won them trophies, won them titles. Not saying that it has to win titles, but we don't mind sitting back and grinding it out and hitting teams on the break. Well, that's absolutely fine, but it has to work. I remember Sam Allardyce coming in, actually, his first press conference. And he came in, and I think just before that we'd lost 3-1, and Sam Allardyce made that quote, "Oh, no Sam Allardyce team ships 3 goals." Oh, really, mate? Didn't quite turn out like that. I don't want to hang David Moyes on the words he said about winning is what I do and all the rest of it. I think it's unnecessary. He said it. They're his words. He doesn't live or die by his words. He lives or dies by his performances. Or so he should, but he doesn't. It doesn't seem to matter how many goals he lets in, how badly he drags the team down, how demotivated the team are. I don't think we've scored a goal from open play in over 400 minutes. Think about that. Over 400 minutes, West Ham have not scored a goal in open play. I level this accusation: can't defend, can't attack, and that's fair. That's fair. I'd like to see the counter argument. I'm not saying you would make that counter argument. I'd like to see David Moyes make the counter argument. Can't defend, can't attack. It's as simple as that, really. And with that in mind, why not get a more attacking manager? It's not like the defensive one we got in at the moment. It's keeping it tight at the back, right? But it's a major worry. It's a major worry. And the discrepancy between the two reports is a concern. As I say, there's enough in them, enough similarities into what I've seen and what I've heard and the other stuff that's coming out in the mainstream media. They're thinking, OK, they have absolutely been briefed. But the earlier ones, earlier on in the day, were definitely he has to win against Fulham. And it started to get diluted as the day went on, which was he can't lose against Fulham. And I don't really see what the massive benefit is of them saying, I think Jim White said something along the lines of, he's under pressure at West Ham like never before. Why say it? I don't get it. Why say it? And this is my problem with it, and this is what I'll finish with here, because this is my overriding concern about what's gone on in the last 24 hours. I think that Sullivan has suddenly realised that the pressure is on him. I think he's thought for all this time the fans are going to blame Moyes, and I think he's now realised, actually, I think they're going to turn on me. He hasn't got David Gold there anymore as a buffer zone. He's there. He's on his own. He really is. Kretinsky's, how he's allowed this to happen, I don't know. He's disappeared. Did you hear? He stormed into the Sparta Prague dressing room last weekend during one of their games. I mean, fine, good for him. But that says everything, really, doesn't it? Says everything. And he's detached. He doesn't go to West Ham games. That tells you all you need to know. It tells me all I need to know. You make up your own conclusions to that. But I do wonder if David Sullivan has come under pressure. He thought, hold on, I'm under pressure here. And now he's actually leaking things out. He's leaking things out, and it's for our benefit, it's for the fans' benefit. He's now saying, oh, you know what, I might get rid of that naughty David Moyes. That's what it seems like is going on here. And it seems insincere. And it lacks conviction. It really does. The conviction and decision-making that I would expect from a man in his position who's a massive part of his empire is under threat. I don't know. Is it David Sullivan's empire? No, it's our club. I know that. But I'm looking at it how he might perceive it. I would expect him to be, at this point, a ruthless businessman, to make clear, concise, and very, very, very quick action on this. And he just doesn't seem to do it. It's more dithering. It's more delaying. It's that one more game thing. Well, I will tell you now, if he carries on dithering and he carries on delaying, and we do end up getting relegated, it will be on David Sullivan. It actually will be, because everybody's been going at David Moyes for a long, long time now. A long, long time. And you get to the point where you think he's just incompetent. He just can't do it. And he's so stubborn, he won't change. You've probably seen the Thomas Souček stats, right? I mean, we're almost doing it. And as I say, I do feel guilty about digging him out every time. I wish I wasn't. I wish we'd won. All right? I wish we'd won. In many respects, even if we lost 5-1, I wish it was Souček that had scored the goal, so I wouldn't have to talk about it. But it's there again. It's everywhere. It's all over the internet. His last four game stats: 8 passes in the last game. I think it was 11 out of 22 in the game before that. 9 the game before that. Something equally bad before that. Hardly any tackles in all the games. He's completely ineffective. And when I look at it, and I was discussing it with Gio, and Gio was saying, when we were doing our player ratings video on Patreon, and Gio was saying he wonders if... He said it must be embarrassing for the guy that goes and hands over the stats to David Moyes. He must say, well, Thomas not so good. And I had a little think about that after we finished that video, and I thought, well, there's only one or two things happening there, really. Either there are no statistics that get given to David Moyes, or he just completely discounts them. Because actually, that's okay. That's okay. Thomas Souček gets a free pass. I was about to say I'd be interested to see what David Moyes thinks about Souček whenever he plays against Fulham, but actually I'm sick of it. Actually, I'm not interested to see it at all. Actually, I'm losing all interest in it, and I know a lot of people already who have basically said if he's still in place for Fulham, they're not going to renew their season tickets. Anyone with kids will know at the moment it is a hard ask. So kids, I think because of TikTok and everything else, kids have got short attention spans these days anyway. It's a hard ask to get them to sit down and watch West Ham and stuff like that. And what you've got to ask them to do now is not sit down and watch West Ham. You're asking people to suffer West Ham. I've got to say that they're losing. They're not just losing games. They're losing potential supporters hand over fist at the moment. Yeah, and I know there's that one. One. Of course, will they ever lose me as a supporter? No, of course not. Will they ever lose you as a supporter? No, absolutely not. But it ain't easy. It ain't easy to. It's not an easy watch. It's not an easy thing to ask people who go home and away to spend their hard-earned money, book their holidays. That's what people do. They book their holiday time from work around a West Ham fixture list, and they travel up and down the country. And they do it because they're West Ham fans. They do it because they've got West Ham in their blood. But quite frankly, it's taking a mickey, really. You've got to give them something. And he gives nothing, David Moyes. Nothing at all anymore. I'm absolutely gobsmacked with it all. Anyway, sorry, I've rambled on 18 minutes. I do apologise. Obviously got a lot to say about it. Anyway, there you go. I'll leave it there. There's the news. David Moyes has got the Fulham game to save his West Ham job.